What's good, meaningful movers? Welcome back to Moving With Me, the podcast where actions have meaning, words have meaning, and we open up the conversations to discover what's your next move. I'm your host, Crystal. In today's episode, we are going to get all fired up about burning out. We are going to take the phrase riding on fumes to a whole new level. But you know how we do it here. We need to set that theme. So let's go ahead and do that. The word of the day is collapse. I mean, this isn't something that we aren't all familiar with already. In fact, we know it so well that instead of avoiding it, we try to find ways to be the last one standing. We have certainly seen a spike in education, high-paying wages, and entrepreneurship, but just as fast as we are entering the workforce, we are seeing those quickly thrown in the towel. What is it about succeeding and performing that makes us keep going well past the point of empty? That's enough of me talking. How about we introduce our guest? And there's no one better to do that than herself. Hannah, why don't you give the people a bit of background about yourself and what you're going to share with us today?
Absolutely. Yes. So I am Hannah Tackett. I have spent 16 plus years in tech, designing software, and I have burnt out more than once and very hard. After recovering from my own burnout and having many conversations at conventions and at work with so many women who have struggled with similar things, I've decided to start portioning out some of my time to helping others to end their burnout, revitalize their career, revitalize their souls, without having to burn it all down, because that can be expensive and hard to recover from. So we want to recover, prevent, before our lives go up in flames.
Amen to that. And I know all about that tech burnout. It is like, once you start, you don't stop. You get into that frame of mind and you just don't realize that you're spiraling because you've almost conditioned your body and your mind that this is normal. I get you, girl. How about this? Tell me the story about your burnout, because I'm interested. You said more than once? What happened? What's going on?
All right, well, tech is not my first career. So my first career, I was a holistic health care practitioner, and I spent 12 years doing that. And I managed to burn out doing that. Not as terribly as I did in tech, but I did run into that exhaustion while I pushed myself beyond what I really should have been doing. And I experienced fatigue and disgruntlement and resentment towards the career, the typical symptoms that you find in burnout. And I shifted it around. It didn't seem as critical to me as my burnout when I was in tech, because when I burned out in tech, I was a little older. Right? I was in my early 30s. I had 2 babies to take care of at home, still fledgling marriage. And I had invested a lot into getting into my career, and I loved my career. Well, I used to love my career. And I hit a wall so hard that I wasn't able to get out of bed for months. I was in bed, couldn't get up. And that really terrified me, because I want to show up for my children. I want to show up for my husband. I want to show up for my friends. I want to show up for my job. And I'm a breadwinner. Like, you can't just stop. But I did. I stopped. I couldn't physically get up. And so that was very eye-opening. I think at that point, I realized I wasn't invincible and that the stakes were too high. The stakes were too high to ever risk having that happen again. The first thing I realized was I have to fix this. So I made that my number one priority. And through years of research and trial and error and talking to doctors and acupuncturists and reading tons of books to piece together the best path forward, and also to make sure that it never happened again. Because burnout for some of us in this world is a habit. We work ourselves until we can't go anymore. And maybe we can get away with that in our 20s when we don't have other people relying on us. But man, when you've got those little babies looking at you, relying on you to show up for them, you have to show up for them. And so it's just not an acceptable path forward as you're moving, on in life, further into your career. More and more responsibility, more and more people are relying on you. You can't just collapse.
Oh my God. You're so right. I mean, I had my own experience with this. I could really feel it coming on. I was like, wait a minute, let me shift out of this, because the skills that I have in tech, it's like one of those things where if I ever wanted to go back into tech, I needed to keep that skill set because it's for work. It's like my safety net. That's the way I look at it. But I was the same way. I'm like, I don't even want to do this anymore. I'm losing the passion. I don't care as much as I did anymore. And that was mind-boggling for me. And so what I was doing was, okay, maybe I just need to find different projects, or maybe I just need to find a different skill set. It's like, no. You're fine where you were. It's one of those things where I kept saying yes to everything because I thought I needed to get more opportunity. And you really do have to set your boundaries. So Tell me a little bit about the term of burnout, because I call that right there burn down. Like I was burning,
Yes.
I was fizzling, but I wasn't out. So what's burnout?
So, I mean, I like the term burn down because you are kind of running out of steam. You're on your way. Well, what I did was I collapsed. Like I ran out of steam and then I stopped going. Like the functioning stopped. I just wasn't working. But it's ideal to turn things around and address it and like face this before you're at a point where you're just not functioning anymore. But yeah, I think burnout is a really good way to describe that kind of slow grinding to a halt, that feeling that you're getting more and more compressed, that feeling that the weight of your job is increasing and increasing. So I like that term burn down. But yeah, so burnout, it's just a collection of signs and symptoms, right? So it's not a medical term, it's a colloquialism. And essentially what it looks like is like, so the initial stage is like the signs that the stress of the job is getting to you, so that, you're feeling irritable, maybe you have some anxiety, there's insomnia, maybe some poor concentration, maybe you're having some gut, tummy problems, headaches. And it looks and feels different for everyone because all of us process and express stress differently. And then that next stage where stress starts to look like burnout, or like you were saying, burn down, is when you start feeling that cynicism and that detachment towards your job. And that's a really, really big red flag. So when you are mentally checking out, that can look kind of like a loss of enjoyment, pessimism, isolation, detachment, becoming kind of chronically late, procrastination, and then my favorite is resentment. Feel resentful about your job or your tasks at your work or the people that you work, whatever it is. That's a really, really big red flag that you are on a path towards burnout. And at that point, when you're feeling those feelings, like that's when you take action, please. Please do take action there. Don't wait until you've crossed the line. And then that third stage of burnout, which is harder to recover from, the signs of that are kind of like a feeling of hopelessness, poor performance, feelings of inadequacy, and a loss of confidence. And that is unfortunate, because confidence, as we all know, is critical. It's like the foundation that we need to move forward in life. And when we start performing less and less well because of our burnout, I've had people describe it like this: doing the simplest task was like pushing their way through distorted white noise, or kind of like being in a fog, or feeling like they're just pushing a boulder uphill just to like get through the day and do normal activities that used to be easy. And so it affects your performance, and that affects your confidence. And then that can easily turn into a downward spiral, which we don't want to happen. And if it is happening, do something about it. You can fix it. You can stop it. You can turn around and you can recover without having to quit your job, take a 2-year sabbatical, walk away from all those RSUs. You can do those things if you want to, but you don't have to. Like, that's not your only option. You can recover where you are in the job that you have today. Like, you can recover now. What I did was I recovered in the job that I was in. There's external factors there that also contributed to burnout, which we can get into, but I recovered there.
In the job
that I burned out hard in. I recovered there. And then once I was feeling more confident again, I took a new job, which ended up being my dream job. Like I said, you don't have to burn it all down. You can recover. You can go and get your dream job. This is not the end of your career if you feel this way. This is solvable. And I've also worked with women where they recover and then they're like, I know I could stay, but I found something else that I love while doing this work, because they had never acknowledged maybe their purpose or their passions before. And while unveiling those things, they find a new path. And so they embark on a new journey. And that's also a beautiful, beautiful thing. So there are options either way. You don't have to stay stuck. You don't have to stay buried. You don't have to stay miserable. It's very, very much something that can be turned around.
I was just resonating with all of that you were saying. And I know a lot of people will be thinking the same thing right now, because we just don't know the signs. We kind of almost put it on ourselves. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's this. Maybe it's that. Or we, like you said, feel pressured. The cynicism about it. Oh my goodness. It was just one thing after the other was coming out. Y'all can't even see me, but I was like nodding like amen as was going ahead and rattling those off. So let me ask you this though. Why do people stay when they are not happy?
Well, oftentimes they feel like they have to. When you're in a state of deep unhappiness and a state of resentment and a state of feeling compressed, it is very hard to see the good opportunities because you're in a negative mindset, right? Because you don't feel good. But that's the bottom line. You don't feel good. You're losing your confidence. You're not showing up the way that you used to. You're beginning to think it's you. And so, all these things kind of like hold us back. I know I had an opportunity to leave the job that I was in while I was in the midst of my hardcore burnout. And I didn't do it because I was like, I felt like I wouldn't be able to perform. I was like, I'm barely hanging in there. What if I go get this new job, I'll disappoint everyone? Like, hindsight, I wish I had taken it. However, there's a little bit of that. And there's also a little bit of just not realizing that the option to heal is there. One of the women I just worked with, she had already changed jobs. She had changed positions. She went from being a UX designer to being a researcher. So she'd done these things to change her external reality, to fix the burnout. And it didn't work. She still felt exhausted and fried and dreaded every single day. And it wasn't until she did the deeper work and shift her beliefs and her mindset and her behaviors that she was able to recover from burnout. So we can change. We can get a new job. And it can be a great job. It still may not fix your burnout.
Yeah.
You might burn out again. You might start up like, okay, new start. Let's get this going. I'm going to start, do a great job. 6 months later, a year later, you are back in the frying pan. You are overheating. You are melting down. You've got nothing left to give. And you're like, maybe I just need a break from this career. Maybe I need to churn butter in the woods. Maybe I need to take a long sabbatical and just, say goodbye to this thing that I built that honestly is pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
You don't actually have to do any of those things. You can. If you want to, you can. But you don't have to recover. She was able to end her burnout, turn things around, wake up every day with energy and hope without quitting her job. She eventually did leave her job and start a new path. But it was after she felt better. It was after she turned things around. It was after she shifted the way she thinks about herself and her job and her work and her relationship to work and how she shows up for work. Those things changed first. And then when she felt good, she was like, cool, I'm great. I'm going to leave now.
Very cool. Very cool. You're right. Those sabbaticals. I've seen top leadership take sabbaticals and come right back. And it's like they have to take another one.
Repeat.
Yeah. It's a cycle. So you have this term, 5 success traps.
Yes.
Right? So tell us about the different success traps that you've established for burnout.
Absolutely. Essentially, these are the characteristics that oftentimes drive us to success. But when they're out of balance, they can also drive us to burnout. The first one is people pleasing. We've all, I think, talked about that and thought about that. But whenever we are constantly working to please others, you want to make your boss happy. You want to make your coworkers happy. You want to avoid any criticism, and you just push yourself to please others. That can very easily be a good thing in some ways, like in balance. People pleasing is just being considerate of others and having high levels of empathy. Taken to an extreme and unbalanced and doing too much of it for too long, it turns into people pleasing, which can drive us to burnout. The second one is perfectionism, which I'm sure we've all thought of and talked about. And this is also something that can be a contributing factor to having fantastic success in your life because you have high standards. You're known for your precision, your attention to detail, and you can deliver against very, very high standards. Flip side of the coin, taken to an extreme, out of balance, too much of it can drive you to working too much, too long, hyper-focusing on the minutia without thinking about the big picture, like your health and your life, and leading you to burnout because you need things to be a certain level in order to feel like you're worthy. The third one is being that helper. And this is kind of like ties into overreaching a little bit. You're helping everyone else. You see a problem and you jump in. You see someone else doing their job and maybe they could be doing their job better and you jump in. You are helping everyone do everything. This applies at home. This applies in our relationships too. All of these principles too, by the way. If we're doing it at work, we're probably doing it at home too. Mm-hmm. And so when you're picking up more than your fair share, when you're picking up and taking on responsibilities that aren't yours, and you're doing it with wonderful intentions, like everything else on this list, in moderation, it's a good thing to be helpful. It is. There's something wrong with being a helpful person. It is a good, beautiful thing, and it can contribute to your success. Taken to an extreme, it's overreaching, and it can lead to burnout. And so these are behaviors that in moderation are fantastic, and in an extreme are not so fantastic. The fourth is that overachieving. I know this one has definitely been me at various points in my life where you've got a vision, you've got a goal, you are going for it, you get it, you're like, cool, next. You don't even celebrate. You don't go out to dinner or anything. You're just like, check. And there's no stopping to appreciate. There's no celebration or minimal, like you celebrate for one afternoon or something, pat, carry on. Yeah. And so it's that constantly going for the next thing, going for the next thing, going for the next thing without taking the rest and the celebration and the appreciation. I think achieving is a fantastic characteristic or personality trait behavior. Overachieving can drive us to a burnout. And the fifth one, which I think we also talk about, is being the nice girl. And that is being that person who smooths everything over first to everyone else. And it's tied to the others. Most of us have like a couple of these that kind of overlap. And this is where you smooth things over for everyone else. You never say no. You don't even know that you can say no. You just think that if it's on your calendar, you've got to be there. But this is where you don't have those boundaries. Maybe you're afraid of setting boundaries. Maybe you just never developed the skills to communicate about what you want and don't want. Maybe you've been so nice for so long, you don't even remember what you want. So obviously being nice is a good characteristic, is a good quality. Being the nice girl in the way that I'm describing it, where it's taken to an extreme where you lose yourself, can lead to burnout. So those are the 5, I call them success traps, because in moderation, in a certain application, these characteristics are good things. They are good things that can lead us to our success. Out of balance, they lead to burnout. So those are the things I think of like our success traps.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And I like how you've mentioned that there's overlap, but there's just like this fine line between all 5 of them. It's just very true. And it's important, I think, to say, yeah, like you said, these are great in moderation, right? It's like one of those things, too much of a good thing. And I also liked how you said people don't know, or they haven't learned how to communicate, how to say no. That was a big thing for me, because for me, saying no was saying no to an opportunity. Saying no to advancement, saying no to visibility, saying no to all of these other benefits that I would get for taking on something. That was hard. It was hard for me to say, I can't do it. I don't know what I was expecting or what I thought I would get back. But at that point, when I was starting to say no, it was like I was ready for you to come back to me with whatever. It's, you know what I mean? I was so prepared for them to come back and I had a rebuttal ready to go. And I just said no. And they're like, oh, okay. And I'm like, wait. So this whole time, all these years, I've been saying yes because I thought y'all was going to fire, you know what I mean? That I'm going to get in trouble or whatever. And the moment I do it, and I'm ready for it now. So we work ourselves up to the point where we don't even know that, like you said, we can say no without any repercussions. So it's just too common. Before we jump into how we get this relief, what's a hard burnout?
When I think of a hard burnout, I think of that feeling where you hit a wall and you can't get up again. Like where people get sick, like physically ill. They are sick and tired and they aren't getting up. They're not showing up for work. They're like failing at life. That's what I think of as like you hit the wall. You need to like heal at a very deep level before you can even think about the next thing. So that's what I think of as like a hard burnout. But then there's like what you were calling the burning down, which is really the ideal time. That's the ideal time to turn this around, is before you get sick, before your body forces you to stop and reconsider how you're living your life. When you're feeling resentment, when you're feeling tired, when you're coming back on Monday morning and you're not ready to go back, when you're having those Sunday scaries, that's the time to fix it. Do it then.
I like how you said Sunday scaries. Golly, you keep dropping all these little hints here and there. And people are going to be like, "What? No. Tell her to talk about them Sunday scaries, because that is so me." Because it's like, I can't even enjoy my Sunday because I'm too busy preparing for Monday.
Yep.
You know, we complain about short weekend all the time. But it's like, well, you really get this one day, because Sunday, it's like another work day, because it's like my prep day. And sometimes Saturday, you will stay all day in the bed because you're like recuperating from the whole week. So yeah, yes. I mean, yeah, you're right. Sunday scaries.
Yeah.
Okay. Lay it on me. So what are the steps to ending a burnout or on the way down?
So the first thing that we do is get into an alignment with what matters to you. So it's really about stepping into authenticity and identifying, if you've forgotten, identify your values, identify your purpose, get into alignment with who you are and what actually matters to you. Because what we really want to do is find out what we want to say yes to. Because once you have a strong yes, saying no becomes much easier. It's also helpful to think of the saying no as every time you say no to something, you're saying yes to something else. So if you have a really clear yes in your mind of what this no is going to open up for you, easy. Makes it so much easier. And then there's just the tactical skills of how do you say no. There's a lot of ways to say no without actually ever using the word no. So, training in learning how to say no, learning how to negotiate, learning how to communicate in ways that aren't going to, you're not going to go to your boss and be like, I'm not doing my job.
Yeah.
Unless you want to. But I don't recommend it. There's other ways to do it. That'll get you great results.
Right.
So we identify our values. We step into what I call like this step is authentic alignment, right? So we get into authentic alignment. We learn how to honor our yes and our no. And then the next step is, I think of it as resourcing energy. And that's where you become very attuned to the activities, the people, the places, the things that are filling your cup, giving you energy, and the things that are draining you. And then once you have a clear map of what that looks like in your life, we can start putting together strategies to outsource, eliminate, delegate, minimize those activities in your life that drain you. Because you don't have to do everything yourself. You should not do everything yourself. There are people in the world who would love to do the things that you hate doing. Yeah. And then tactical skills around that. Once you have the strategy, how do you actually communicate? How do you actually line up the support that you need and resource energy, right? Build your team to support you. And this is holistic. Like we're talking about career burnout, but we're looking at the entire life. Like we're looking at home, we're looking at work, we're looking at friendships, we're looking at your whole life. This is a holistic approach. Yeah, so that's the second step. And then the third step is, I think of it like stepping into personal power. And that's where we address self-sabotage, because anytime we make a change in our lives, it is change. And what does our critter brain do when we make a change? It freaks out, right? It wants to go back and maintain the status quo, right? Keep us safe. So we address self-sabotage and external sabotage head on and make sure that it's not a surprise. We've got strategies in place to deal with this. We also deal with like career trauma. So I don't know about you, but I have seen thousands of people laid off. It is scary. It is scary. We've been mansplained. We've been passed over. We've been underpaid. We have been ignored. We've had other people take credit for our successes. Yes. We've had bosses micromanage us. We've had so many things happen that are upsetting and violate our autonomy, make us feel like we're not worthy. So there's things that we're carrying that we need to heal. And so we work on that. We expose it all. We get in there and we heal the wounds. And we step from a story of pain into a story of empowerment. What I think of as like stepping into personal power, that phase, that step. And then the last is, now that you have this overflow of energy, now that you're feeling good, what do you really want? What are you going to go get? And make sure that the new energy that you have, the new focus that you have, the new passion that you have is being directed with intention and that you're not falling into the same traps again.
Oh, that's so true. Yeah, it is career trauma. I mean, I can really relate to all of that. But the one that really stuck out to me was when I was laid off. I was only 2 years into my career out of college. So I'm hitting this massive workforce pool of experienced workers. And I got to compete with my 2 years. I mean, it took a long time. And I mean, once that piece was over, I think that was why I was like, I can't say no, because I have to reach a certain level because I need to be as valuable as possible to ensure that even if I get laid off, I can get rehired or something can happen or whatever. And you're right. That's something that will push you. Oh my God, I'm just thinking about that now. That's so interesting. So you mentioned something that makes me lead into this question. What is your primary demographic and why?
So I mainly work with women. I've historically mostly worked with women in tech because that is my background. I know a lot of women in tech. And why women? So what I've found is, men burn out too. They absolutely do. When I'm, learning about women and talking to them and having these really in-depth conversations and doing research, when I say why does it even matter to you to fix this? Most of them, it's about being able to show up for their family, being able to show up for themselves, being able to be a whole person and not feel kind of compressed and like they're just like living a role. I find that I relate to the why of women at a higher level than I do the why of men, which sometimes I get weird answers, or not weird, totally valid answers about like, well, they want to pursue culinary craft. I'm like, great, why? With women, it goes down to the soul, like really easily. Yeah. I'm sure for men it's there too, but they just don't get to it to do it. Maybe more digging. But the why I relate to very strongly. Also, women, we end up at various points in our lives at, not always, not all of us, many of us as caretakers. Whether it's our kids, our spouses, sick relatives, parents, much of that burden ends up put upon the woman. And even if you are the breadwinner, even if you are an executive, you still have to manage like everything.
Yeah.
And so that's another aspect that I relate to and I love to help women with is managing this as a holistic approach. We're dealing with our entire lives, not just work, right? Because usually burnout is multifaceted. Like when I burnt out, it was everything. It was my job as like my primary like source of pain. And then parenting, I was exhausted. Marriage, it was still relatively new marriage and I was tired,
Yeah.
Like we've got to manage all of these relationships, all of these pieces and parts of our lives. And we need strategies for all of them, not just how to get the best job, right? But show up and do great at work. And you've got to be able to delegate at home. You've got to get support from your partners. You've got to build a team to support you. And also, what I find with women is we assume we have to do it all ourselves.
Yes, we do.
More so than with men. And so that's something that it's a really big part of the self-sabotage section where like we really go deep into unpacking that. And like we don't have to do it ourselves. You don't have to make dinner every night from scratch. You don't have to do anything. We just figure out what you like to do, what you want to do, what you're good at, and then we build around that, Oh
my gosh. You're right. The professional stress does bleed into your personal life. So true. You just recalled this memory. I remember traveling while I was consulting. And I remember my husband giving me a call and he's like, hey, where's one of our kids' shoes at? I told him where it was too, right? And he went and looked, he goes, great, thanks, I found it. And I'm like, what the heck? I am not even at that house. I'm states away. I felt like really compelled. I was really proud that I could do that. But I was like, wow, I am needed. Like he could have gone to school with socks on, or something. I didn't know what to think, but I freaked out about that. And you're right. You have to manage. You have to manage a lot of stuff. That same communication that you were talking about with work, we do that too as well at home.
Exactly.
It's very true.
Yeah. Yes. I think learning to ask for what you want and get it is a life skill. And it's a part of the process, I think, of healing from burnout is identifying what you want, learning how to ask for it, and then being willing to receive it. I think sometimes we are just not willing to receive the help, are not willing to receive what we want.
That's hard too, because we're not used to getting it. I'm talking about me. And when I say me, I wasn't used to getting it. And when I got it, I was like, well, what the hell you want me to do with this? Yeah, it was like, what do I do? What do I do now that I'm getting help? And has my position and my value been lowered because I'm now being helped?
Yes, that's it's like an identity shift. Once you go from, I can do it all, I am Superwoman, and I have been my whole life, and I will continue to be forever, except for when I get sick because I burn out, to being, I am now taking I like to think of it as a leadership role in my life, where I am building a team around me, and I'm holding people accountable to support me and to support our vision of what a beautiful life is at home, our vision of what success is at work. And I'm now basically leading a team in multiple facets of my life. So for myself, I had to shift from thinking of myself as, well, I'm Superwoman, I can do it all, to I'm stepping into a leadership role. And so, but it's an identity shift. So so when you get support, you're suddenly like, well, who am I if I'm no longer the one that's doing it all? Like you said, am I less valuable? That's a big question. No, you're not less valuable. Leadership is extremely valuable.
This is good, girl. You're dropping some gems on here. Okay. I want to say this, Hannah. You are so awesome. I do appreciate you coming on here, just being this huge advocate. I want to say mainly for women, but just for this stress-filled management role that we need to play a lot, and just offering your expertise and your services to help others navigate that way. So appreciate you. Well, do you have any golden nuggets for us? Tell me, please tell me you got some golden nuggets.
I think the most important thing is you don't have to suffer. You don't have to be miserable. You're not proving your worth by overworking and taking it all on yourself. You are worthy because you are. You don't have to be a perfectionist. You don't have to be a people pleaser. You don't have to do all the things by yourself. I think that's the first one, is you are worthy. You will be okay. If you learn to say no, you'll be more than okay. And then the next is, if you are feeling like your soul is being sucked out of your body by your job, if you feel like you're heading towards a wall, if you feel like you can't keep going on, do something about it now. Don't wait until it's gone so long and so deep that recovery can take years. So turn it around now, reach out, get help, look into this. You do not have to do it alone. There is help. It can be completely salvaged. So I think those two things.
Let's go good. I like that. Hope and promise. Well, that's the episode today. Are you out there nodding your heads profusely or in deep thought about those 5 success traps? Perhaps you are finally taking a deep breath, because we all know that the race we are running, there ain't no ribbon to break at the finish line, even if there is one. How about those burnout symptoms? Recognize anything? I hope you feel like this episode is speaking to you. I truly appreciate Hannah sharing her personal story and speaking on a topic that is so extremely common, we glaze right over it. It's easy to deal with one stress when covering up with another. Remember, if you make yourself a priority, so will everyone else. I urge you to reach out to a coach, and hey, wouldn't you know it, we have one right here. Even if you have listened to your body, mind, and spirit, calling out to be freed from the chains of those 5 success traps, I'd love to hear the paths you took to balance your life and work. I love it all, and so will someone else. Before I let you go, Hannah, why don't you go ahead and remind the people who you are, where they can find your resources or reach out to you?
Absolutely. So I am Hannah Tackett. I'm offering a resource for podcast listeners that is how to cut your hours by 20% without damaging your reputation. You can find that at serenesuccess.net/pod. P-O-D as in podcast, P-O-D. And that is available for anyone who is interested in starting to dive deep on how to take a few steps back and really invest in themselves.
Fantastic. I think you also got a little cheat sheet, huh?
Yes, it's a cheat sheet.
Okay, I'll make sure to include all of Hannah's resources and connections in the episode description, as well as on my website's resources page, movingwithmeaning.com. Make sure you guys subscribe to the show, Moving with Meaning, the podcast, and tap that alert bell so you know when these episodes drop. I am on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, and YouTube Music. Please share, like, repost, and follow. Tag someone. We are creating a community. Quick housekeeping before you go. Follow me on Instagram at movingwithmeaning82. Also, connect with me on LinkedIn. I do dabble in TikTok at Crystal B. Clark. My YouTube channel is up. Kindly run over there and have a look or two. Links are in the episode. Alrighty, I'm Crystal on Moving with Meaning, the podcast, reminding you to take it one step at a time. All moves have meaning. Check y'all later.